right. Good evening, everyone. I see some familiar faces, but also some new ones. Welcome, welcome. While everyone is still filtering in, um, I invite you to introduce yourself by sharing your name in the chat, along with your pronouns and where you're joining us from in Maryland. Also, if you know your legislative district, add that to the end of your name by clicking the three dots when you hover over your video, if you're on your computer, or if you're on your phone, just try clicking those three dots and look for a change name or just the name option. Glenn, good to see you. I feel like it's been forever. Julie, good to see you as well, holding it down in District 46. I have some news for you. Samson, Lois, Ken, welcome, welcome, welcome. David, always good to see you. Hey, Miss Gail. Good evening, Judy, Bob. Give it another minute or so. All right, Sister Mary Jo is on the call. Good to see you. I think that's Gary coming in. All right, y'all. If you have not done so already, please introduce yourselves in the chat. Share your name and pronouns and where in our great free state of Maryland you are calling in from today. If you know your legislative district, please add that to the end of your name. Just hover over your video. If you're on your computer, look for those three dots and rename is the option for you. Hi, Brittany. Good to see you.
Hey, Dustin. Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Jim McGalliard from District 39. All right, wonderful Westminster. All right, so we will be sharing the recording afterwards. All right, y'all, it's looking like we are reaching critical mass. So as we get started, we do want to make sure that everyone can follow along easily. during our training. So you can turn on closed captions by selecting the closed caption icon located in the Zoom toolbar on the desktop. If you are on your smartphone, if you don't see a closed captioning button, you'll need to select the back arrow in the top left of your screen, and then the settings cog icon, then meetings, then enable the show closed captioning when available toggle button. If you're having any difficulty doing those, please just send us a message and we will try to help if we can. Oh, and Richard, you said that it's hard to hear me. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so we can go to the next slide. So, good evening, everyone, once again. My name is Dustin, and I am the Baltimore Regional Coordinator. I use he, they pronouns. I live in the Mount Vernon neighborhood of beautiful Charm City, Baltimore, and it is wonderful to see everyone. So tonight, we are going to share our legislative priorities that we are going to be mobilizing around for 2026. We're going to answer any questions that you may have on these issues. We're going to talk about how we're going to win on these issues. We're going to share opportunities for you to get involved and discuss our next steps. We can go to the next slide, please. So our first big priority is the RENEW Act study bill. Climate change impacts are escalating here in Maryland and are very costly right now for households, businesses, and the entire state. Just over the summer, we experienced the most heat illnesses and deaths in the past 5 years, and the most flash flood warnings in that same time frame. These are all deadly, they are disruptive, and they are expensive. And so the RENEW Act, the Responding to Emergency Needs from Extreme Weather Act study, was authorized during the 2025 legislative session earlier this year. It passed 100 to 38 in the House and 29 to 13 in the Senate, both super majorities. And this legislation directed the Comptroller of Maryland and the Department of the Environment to study exactly how much climate change is costing us Marylanders and which of the biggest polluters we need to send the bill to. This is a very important cost calculation study bill. It cost $500,000, and it was supposed to be paid for by the Dedicated Strategic Energy Investment Fund, or the SEIF, which we'll be talking about a bit later, to calculate the current and future cost of climate change to the state of Maryland. Melanie, you say, why did Governor Moore veto it? Yes, so he vetoed the bill in May, along with all of the other study bills. He said that he didn't want to spend money on studies and that he is a person of action. But so is everyone here tonight. We know that the RENEW study bill is that critical step to getting fossil fuel companies to pay their fair share to clean up their mess. Just to sum it all up, if you broke it, you got to pay for it. We can go to the next slide, please. So our strategy for overriding that veto, it would take place within days of the start of the 2026 legislative session. So within that, the vote would come up within a few days of January 15th. And so the timeline for our advocacy has been accelerated because we want our legislators to be assured that their constituents support them and to be committed on day one to vote yes, override this veto. So far, we've accomplished this by maintaining sustained communication and escalated engagement from constituents, people that live in the districts that many of these elected leaders are representing. Give me 1 second. Oops. Our volunteer lobbyists started reaching out to legislators back in August, and we've garnered support from those legislators. And while a lot of them want to do the right thing, they need to know that we, as their constituents, have their back. Hundreds of people across the state have already used our emailing tool to send emails to their legislators, and we need hundreds more to do the same. Currently, we have in-district lobby teams all over the state that are building relationships and holding meetings with their legislators, asking them to support the veto override. And like I mentioned before, if it does come to a vote, the veto override will be one of the very first issues the General Assembly is going to consider. So we need your help now to help keep up the pressure and make sure our elected leaders hear from us while they are preparing for the upcoming session. But I do want to pass it over to our Maryland Director, Brittany Baker, to share more about the policies that are going to carry our movement and our state to a banner year for the climate, and for which we are going to need your continuous advocacy throughout the entire legislative session to win a brighter future. Go ahead, Brittany.
Thank you, Dustin. Hello, everybody. Very good turnout today. Just want to congratulate all of us for that. And just reflecting off of what Dustin said, we're here to take action. We're here to be about action. So this is an exciting moment, especially on the backside of that election that really turned the page in American history. So glad to be here with you all. And just as Dustin stated, the veto override is kind of a pre-session priority. The action is going to be taken on that either during this special session that everybody's talking about, or on the first few days of legislative session. And so now moving into what we'll truly be tracking during legislative session, I have 3 or 4 bills to highlight. But of course, we're tracking more than just these bills, but these are our priorities. So number 1, Delegate Charkoudian's solar bill. So this is a bill that is going to move forward the pieces of the Abundant, Affordable, Clean Energy Act that were initially introduced last year. We know that many of the provisions in ACE were adopted into the Legislative Leadership Energy Package last year, but the reform of the solar program, of the solar SREC program, did not make it into the Leadership Energy Package. And so we're moving forward to put that forth again this year, because we think that changing our solar renewable energy credit program is going to expand solar in the state, make it less costly for ratepayers, and also set up a process so that as things change year by year, whether it's the federal situation or the situation on the ground, we'll set up a clear process to update the prices of solar renewable energy credits for each sector, and also set up a competitive solicitation for utility scale solar. The other piece of Delegate Charkoudian's bill, which is really exciting, I have people emailing me and reaching out to me from all across the nation about this provision, enabling balcony solar. And that's what we see here in the picture. So balcony solar is a new technology. It's widely deployed in Germany. They have hundreds of megawatts of balcony solar installed. And it's really a way that people can, especially renters and lower and moderate income individuals and individuals who don't have a roof or their roof is not compatible with the solar project, they can just put solar panels right on their balcony, plug them into the socket, and get access to clean energy. So we're really excited about that provision in the bill. And last but not least, for the nerds out there, the complicated explanation is right now, the way we have our solar program set up, utilities purchase solar renewable energy credits with ratepayer dollars, but when the price of the solar renewable energy credits is too high, what they do is buy alternative compliance payments instead. And we'll talk about this some in a moment, but the Maryland General Assembly and the governor has been using that money to balance the budget instead of using it to buy solar. So Delegate Charkoudian came up with a very innovative way that we can hold those alternative compliance payments in an escrow account, so that instead of them being used for balancing the budget and things like that, we'll use them for solar in the future. We can go to the next slide, Mustafa. So the next bill that I want to tell you about is the Transportation and Climate Alignment Act. Now, Sierra Club has been working on that piece of legislation for a long time. And finally, because it hasn't gotten over the finish line, we are going to support it as well because it needs some extra energy this year. And so the idea with the Transportation and Climate Alignment Act is that it will require the Maryland Department of Transportation to measure the greenhouse gas emissions from major transportation projects, because right now they're not measuring that, and they're not determining, is this a project that will increase emissions through vehicle miles traveled, or is this a project that will decrease emissions? And so we'll start determining that. And then projects that increase emissions, MDOT will be sure to offset those emissions by investing into projects that decrease emissions, such as bike lanes or other projects that reduce vehicle miles traveled. And they'll also have to provide clean transportation alternatives to residents affected by the project. Next. So another bill that's been in play for quite a while, and we're just so excited to support this year. It's led by Delegate Sheila Ruth and Delegate Jen Terrasa. It's the Climate Restitution Fund. And a week ago, the conversation around this legislation was a lot different. But now we are so hopeful that the time will come that the context in the United States will be very friendly for suing fossil fuel companies. And so the purpose of this bill is to set up the legal framework in Maryland so that whenever the right time is upon us, we will already have everything we need for the Attorney General to investigate, commence, prosecute, or defend lawsuits against fossil fuel companies. And so the bill has that authorization, and it also changes this provision in Maryland legal statute called UCATA. What that represents is right now, if an entity is more liable for a situation than another entity, they actually have the same liability in courts. But when you change the UCATA statute, it creates a situation where an entity that is more liable can be held accountable to a greater extent than a smaller entity. And this is very important because if we were to sue fossil fuel companies, depending on how things worked out, we wouldn't want it to be the case that ExxonMobil has the same liability as some small fossil fuel user in the state. And so we're going to get that bill over the finish line. We're really excited to support Delegate Terrasa and Delegate Ruth with that. Next bill. Oh, fantastic. Oh, protecting the SEAF. So not a bill. Well, we're working with partners to determine if there is some specific language that we need to protect the SEAF. The language that the SEAF currently has is that is a special fund that's supposed to be dedicated for Maryland Energy Administration grants, lower and moderate income utility assistance, and climate change programs. But in the past few years, it has been redirected for paying for staff time, for balancing the budget, and for even last year. I mean, we are really glad that we did the legislative energy relief line item on everybody's utility bills to give people a little bit of money back because it is a hard time. But that's not the intended use of the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. And so we're beating the drum to say there are multiple proposals in front of us that can help us to protect the SEAF. One of them is what I referred to earlier in Delegate Charkoudian's solar bill, because if the two revenue sources for the SEAF are alternative compliance payments and auction revenue from RGGI, which is our regional energy sector cap and trade program. And so the money from that goes into the Strategic Energy Investment Fund as well. And so by reducing the amount of alternative compliance payments that the utilities are coughing up every year, that will help the CEF stay protected because the fund will be smaller and more manageable. But we're also connecting with coalition partners to determine other ways, other proposals that we can support in relation to protecting the CEF. All righty, Mustafa. Next slide. And I know the next one is question and answer, but before I open up for questions, I do want to reiterate again that we are following and supporting other pieces of legislation outside of what I just presented. But again, those are our priorities. And the last thing I'll mention as far as priorities is we do have a couple of priorities that are on defense, things that we'll be fighting against. And one of them, if you read Maryland Matters this week, it is protecting against utilities owning generation. At first, they were insinuating in the press that they really wanted to build a new gas plant. Specifically, the Exelon-owned utilities were really putting out information that Maryland is in an energy crisis and our competitive market isn't working, so they should be allowed to build new gas. And we know that's not true. That's not factual. And so now they've changed their storyline and they say, oh, well, we just want to build solar projects. And we're going to say no to that as well. So stay on the lookout for that defense campaign. And the last thing, and I'll shout out Doug on the call because we worked together really diligently on this last year, but the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, the same group of opposition that was fighting against that bill last year, they've come back and we hear that there may be a bill to weaken that legislation that already passed, was signed, was integrated into operation at the PSC. And so we're going to prevent that. We're really going to fight back against any weakening of the Renewable Energy Certainty Act as well. Questions?
Okay, great. Yeah, Brittany, we've got some questions in the chat for both you and Dustin. The first one comes from Thomas Northrup. I believe this is regarding the Renew Act. Why is it possible that it wouldn't come for a vote in terms of veto override, Brittany? And if so, why?
Great question, Thomas. So it is possible that it wouldn't come up to a vote. When it comes to protocol, it is true. If they choose not to address it in a timely fashion, we'll lose our chance. That's the way they could silently not bring it to a vote. And when it comes to the political situation, I mean, there are other bills that are in discussion right now with legislative leadership in terms of potential veto overrides. One of them is the Reparations Commission. And I don't know if people joined the event that we hosted last night. I'll put the YouTube link in the chat right now. But the Maryland Legislative Black Caucus is working diligently on a veto override for that bill as well. And one thing I keep telling people, because some other veto overrides that are in discussion are the Data Center Impact and Analysis and the Strategic Energy Planning Office from last year as well. That was part of the leadership package. All of the veto overrides kind of work together. And so, everybody's in conversation, and I think there are groups that are very committed to the issues. And unless, there's a way to, everybody's having the conversation now, is there a way to move forward without veto overrides? And if, various coalitions don't find a way forward, then I expect that there will be veto overrides.
Great. Thanks for that, Brittany. Another question from James McGalliard. James, thanks for asking this. Was just in regards also to Renew. James was asking about the lawsuit against the Vermont legislation, Make Polluters Pay legislation, and just how that either impacts implementation of Renew or how we're how you're approaching the study.
Sorry, Mustafa, can you ask that one more time?
No worries. James McGalliard is asking basically how does the lawsuit against Vermont's version of Make Polluters Pay, the Renew Act legislation, how does
Okay.
that impact the Renew Act work in Maryland?
So one of the reason we amended the bill down to a study is because exactly this scenario, the New York legislation has the full assessment to fossil fuel companies in the bill, and the Vermont legislation is written so that their Department of Environment has to study the cost of climate change, and then the assessment kicks in automatically to fossil fuel companies. And so both of these bills are currently in the courts, and it will be informative, based on what happens in the next year or so, how the strength of the different versions of the language. And based on what happens, we will be able to write our implementation language accordingly. Right now, last year, we did start off the year with language that was the full Renew Act, so calculating the costs and assessing the fees. But right now, for our veto override situation, all we're trying to do is calculate the costs. So we have time.
Great, great. We're going to take a few more questions. I see from Ravi. Ravi's got a question about the Alternative Compliance Fund. Ravi's just looking for some more details. Is there like a more detailed explanation of the legislation? Is there something that we could share, Brittany, with Ravi, or maybe we could just share the fact sheets?
Sure. Definitely we can follow up with you about the fact sheets. I'll put my email in the chat. I hope everyone on this call knows that you can email me anytime. I'm always available, but to give the top lines. So, the reality is Maryland has required utility companies to build solar, but the way we have them support solar, because we're a deregulated state, is through collecting money from ratepayers and then investing into solar through SRECs. So it was important that we had a cap on how much solar renewable energy credits could cost, because we don't want it to be the case that solar credits are so expensive and then they have to take more and more money from ratepayers. And so that's what an alternative compliance payment is. When you hear the term, it makes you think, oh, utilities didn't do the right thing, and so they chose to do the wrong thing. But not really. It's more of a price ceiling so that they can have a reasonable amount that they invest in solar every year.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Next question is from Bob on Delegate Charkoudian's solar bill. Does it include rooftop solar in the legislation, or is it focused on utility scale solar?
It does include rooftop solar because the bill sets up a process for the different solar sectors to get their SREC price adjusted at the PSC. And one of those sectors is rooftop residential solar.
Fantastic. Great. And then I'm going to skip ahead here just because of a relevant question to okay. Actually, never mind. Okay, great. Heidi has a question for the both of you just about the Renew Act. Heidi has contacted both of her senators and her four delegates 3 times now, twice by email and once by phone, and none of them have responded. And so, do we have suggestions for how we might be able to reach them? And yeah, and to get a response.
Yeah, I would say 2 things on that. One, just know sometimes they don't respond either because they're very busy or their staff is not working yet, or, maybe some legislators are more responsive than others, but you sending your message is important, because whenever they check their emails, they'll see, wow, I'm getting so many messages about the Renew Act and about this veto override. So you're still doing the work that you need to do. But if you can't, if you haven't been able to contact them, what I do suggest is try to find them in person, honestly. So a lot of legislators, especially around this time of year, are starting to have town halls and legislative previews, very similar to what we're doing right now. And so try to attend those events. And then when you attend the event, you can ask the questions in person.
And Heidi, I will give you a call tomorrow if you're available, or I'll follow up with you by email. We're in the same district, so those are my folks too. I'm very upset that they have not responded to you by now. So we will figure it out, and we'll get some meetings scheduled.
Thank you. I unfortunately can't attend the town halls in person, but I will keep writing until they get sick of my letters.
Yes.
I've been
And
updating them also with new information, and I'm planning to send them an update with the information from yesterday's meeting.
Perfect.
So-
Thank you, Heidi. I will follow up with you. I am also just making copies of our fact sheets here so that you can all view them in a Drive folder.
Great. Thank you for doing that, Dustin. Okay. Great. I think that rounds out the questions. All right. Fantastic. So Dustin, do you want to talk to us about how we're gonna win?
Yes, I do. I will share everyone on that folder in a bit. Google is fighting with me right now. So I lost the battle against Google, but we are going to win the fight for our climate. The legislative session, it starts in just a little over 2 months, and with a landmark election season, we got the first taste of it on Tuesday. On top of everything coming out of the federal administration right now, everything going on, we've really got our work cut out for us. But with all eyes on states like ours, we've also got an opportunity to achieve massive wins on climate in our state. But we can't do it alone. So we are going to win on these issues by building the biggest and broadest coalition possible, because we know the best people to speak about the climate crisis are the ones who are feeling those impacts each and every day. We are going to have a steady rhythm of all of our legislators being contacted by their constituents weekly, just like Heidi, about these issues, by email, by phone calls, by lobbying either at their office and other methods, writing postcards, and going down to events in Annapolis, just like this No New Gas rally that we had right on Lawyers Mall. We're also going to do outreach in our own communities. So you can go to your community association or your farmers market. Many of the folks here tonight have already been doing that work to get the folks around you in your own networks to take action and contact their legislators. So on each of these priority issues, the people that are going to hear them first are in the legislative committees. So we are going to need to build support from these committee leaders and the members of those committees. We can go to the next slide, please. So first, we have the Senate Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee. It is chaired by Senator Feldman in District 15, Vice Chair Senator Kagan in District 17, out by Leisure World. You can go to the next slide. Then we have the House Environment and Transportation Committee, chaired by Delegate Corman out in Montgomery County, and in the 43rd, oops, I have a typo there, but in the 43rd, Delegate or Vice Chair Delegate Boyce. And then we can go to the next slide. Then on the House Economic Matters Committee, we have Chair Wilson and Vice Chair Crosby. And then rounding it out, and these are the committees that we anticipate the bills will go to. But once we're actually assigned bill numbers, we'll communicate those to you. But check and see if any of your legislators are on these committees. It's chaired by Delegate Atterbury and Vice Chair Wilkins. If we can go to the next slide, there we go. So to build those relationships with our legislators, we're going to need folks to take a role in their community. Mustafa is going to talk in greater detail about the volunteer roles. We're also going to hear from a couple folks who've been volunteering with us for some time now. But here are some top line programmatic goals for the legislative session. Someone in that picture looks familiar, Glenn, but it's a great photo of our PSC comment writing party. So our goal is to have 30 plus lobbying teams. There are 47 legislative districts in Maryland. We would like at least 30 of them represented by grassroots lobbyists like yourselves, especially those in all Democratic districts that are represented on the key committees that we just went over and in leadership. We are aiming to have 10 plus in-district meetings prior to the session. We already have some of those scheduled, and we're working with you in these last couple weeks to make sure that we request and schedule those meetings. We are aiming to have 4,000 plus digital action takers. So people who maybe you've used our email writing tool. Maybe you said, yes, I signed the petition to make polluters pay. We need 4,000 plus to make that difference. We're going to make over 3,000 calls to other constituents, asking them to contact their legislator, leave a message on their office phones. And we are going to submit over 500 postcards. Go to the next slide, please. So how do we do that? We have several different roles. Like I said, Mustafa is going to go in on these in greater detail. But everyone here is a climate constituent. You have a story. You have a reason why you want to organize on the climate. And then you can also become a lobby captain. So someone who is taking the direct lead and sending that email to your legislator to request a meeting. That is building your team of volunteers, either from not just from our list, but also from your own networks. We need more folks writing postcards. And if you'd like to host a postcard party, we have a couple official CCAN ones coming up, but even if you want to host your own out of your own home or a community space, we will get everything set up for you. We'll handle the food, we'll get you postcards, we'll even pay for the stamps. We need folks also writing testimony and joining our lobby teams. So this is one of our biggest rapid response needs, because we might only find out that an important bill that we really care about is going to have a hearing or go to a vote just a couple days in advance. So having people who have written testimony, or maybe it's your first time, we have a story of self-training. We need your help to make sure that that our grassroots voices are being heard. We also need help doing relational recruitment and building those community partnerships. So we want volunteers to recruit new volunteers in their community to join the lobby team, attend community meetings, and different events. But I do want to pass it over to you, Mustafa, to see if we have any of our longtime volunteers or folks who have been volunteering with us to talk about their stories. How's your experience been?
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Dustin. I know that a number of you that are on this call have done lobbying with us, have done phone banking, postcard writing, submitted testimony. I wanted just to give space for folks who have done this before. Brittany, I'm sorry, I see your hand up.
No, go ahead, Mustafa.
Okay.
After you.
Okay. I want to give space for folks who have done those things before, just to share, why you why you got involved, and what it has been like for you to do that. And I just want for folks to know that maybe who haven't done this before, that you can really do this. It's with a little bit of support and guidance, we can do these tactics really, really well. So I want to invite folks to share, those who have done testimony writing, those who have lobbied, those who have written postcards to their legislators, made phone calls. I'd love for folks to share. I see Sister Mary Jo. I know you've done so much incredible work with Dustin, Sister Mary Jo. Do you want to just share?
Sure. I was trying to find my hand
Yeah,
raiser thing.
yeah, you're okay. You're okay. Folks can
So,
just hop off
so
and mute
thanks for
this.
calling on me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've done gathering petitions, signatures on petitions. I've done phone banking. I've talked to our legislators, and they are all like in my district. Delegate Ruff was a co-sponsor for Renew, and so and the whole team is all on board about it. But they say, just like Anne put in the chat, what Delegate Charkoudian said, we need to do a power map and connect. And I would love to do more phone banking or whatever to the districts where we need people to call their legislators who are not on board about this, because that's what our legislators who are on board say. We need to get momentum from the people. The voice of the people needs to go to our elected officials who are not on board yet. So I'd be glad to do it. It's fun. But we just need to focus, because I don't want to just be calling people that or getting signatures from areas where the legislators are already on our team.
That's a great comment, Sister Mary Jo, and thank you for saying that. And I'll address two things while all the 45 other people go ahead and start thinking about how you want to chime into this conversation, because I know there are other people who want to tell their volunteer story as well. And I think the storytelling is the thing, because when we think of what you just said, Sister Mary Jo, it is so true that we don't need to be putting a tsunami of information on our champions. They already know, they're already good on our issues. But when we think about a bell curve, we're not actually trying to move legislators who are not good on our issues. What we're trying to move is the people who are kind of neutral. And how do we move them? With stories. Last night was so impactful, to tell legislators how climate change is affecting Curtis Bay, climate change is affecting Nanjemoy, climate change is affecting Prince George's County. Those are the stories we need to tell. But how do we tell them? By telling what happens to us. Oh, for me, I mean, many of you know, if you follow CCAN, I have 3 kids, and 2 of my kids have asthma. So to have extreme heat days in the summer where there's also a air quality code, that means we can't go outside. Well, let me tell you what little kids are like when we're stuck inside. Like, that's a real impact that I experience. And so all of us being able to tell our stories of how climate change is materially impacting us, impacting our habits, impacting our pocketbooks, that's what moves those middle legislators. And it is so very important. And the other thing I want to address is Gwen's question in the chat, which is, will efforts to pass redistricting complicate efforts to override the vetoes? Now, I'm still unpacking what's really going on with the redistricting conversation. But one piece that could change our calculus is if we actually have a special session, because that means this veto override moment will need to come up earlier than we expected. So that's the only thing that I'm watching out for right now, but I am continuing to follow that conversation.
Thanks, Brittany. Yeah, Sister Mary Jo, you were making me think back to about almost 15 years ago, more than 16 years ago, when I was first starting out as an organizer, and one of the first campaigns was in my county, we were doing a campaign to make the school board of elections nonpartisan, and that required passing state legislation. And so I was, I was recruited to come meet with the state senator to tell my story of being a public school student in that district and largely going to an almost entirely black and brown school and the impacts of lack of funding that are often very political ones, and the consequences for that. And I remember I was um, I was stressed about it because I was like, I gotta have this perfect story. I gotta be able to really deliver it. But I had somebody walk me through it and prepare me for it and um, help me think through what I was going to say with my 2 minutes. And I still do remember the state senator thanking me for telling me that story. And that state senator actually agreed to sponsor the legislation and got it done. And so uh, that I think back to that as a new person to this. Maybe other folks are feeling similarly. Um, Glenn, I see that you're on the call. Glenn, would you like to share just how you, what what you've done in terms of your lobbying and your advocacy at CCAN, and that might motivate others that are just thinking about whether they can do these things that we're inviting folks to do?
Well, sure. Well, I've done a little bit of some of the various activities that have been mentioned. I was in-person lobbying last January for the Renew Act, and we met with two of our legislators. The other one, unfortunately, Delegate Boyce wasn't available, and I know she's a critical member of that committee, but she seems to be supportive of the issue. Um, but and I also participated in some of the canvassing that CCAN has done, and also submitted testimony on the legislative website. I mean, I don't know, I can't measure the direct effect of my activities, but as long as everybody does a little bit of something, I guess it has to have a cumulative impact. And I guess it's hard to know, what the legislators actually do with what they receive, but we've got to give it our best shot. And it made me feel good that at least I was doing something, and I wasn't just sitting back and letting the issue lay, because it's a very important issue to me. I've been interested in environmental issues for, most of my adult life.
Thanks so much for sharing, Glenn. Actually, before I move forward, is there anybody else that would like to share? Okay. Great. Well, what I want to do is, as Dustin talked about, we have a number of volunteer opportunities that are going to be consistent volunteer opportunities through the entirety of the legislative session. And so we have opportunities for just being a lobbyist, joining the lobby team. Um, we have opportunities for writing postcards, for phone banking, for submitting testimony. And we also are looking for volunteers that maybe have done this before or would be interested in becoming volunteer leaders on each of these tactics within our program to help support and train other volunteers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put onto y'all screens a poll where you can just let us know, provide some feedback. You can select as many answers as you would like. What categories of these tactics you'd be interested in? There's two questions. One is like, if you're totally new to this, what the particular tactics that you would like to be getting involved in, and then if you've maybe done some of this before or are really aspirational and want to become an expert and lead on these tactics. you can select those in the second question. So I'm going to give folks a few minutes to do that. But as folks are answering the poll and you're considering that, I would invite for folks to ask myself or Dustin or Brittany any questions just about the program and how folks can get involved during session. Dustin, I know there's a lot of activity in the chat. Are there any questions that folks have raised there that we should be addressing?
There are a few. Let's see. Oops. All right, Thomas, I do see your hand up. We'll go to you first.
Go ahead, Thomas. Yeah.
Sure. What are there any other bills that we expect to come up during the legislative session, or is what are the 4 bills that Brittany presented on the extent of the green legislation that CCAN is advocating for?
So
Brittany, go ahead. There you
yeah,
go.
there are definitely other bills that will come up during session. Some that I'm tracking and are in support of are some utility accountability legislation in the Economic Matters Committee. CCAN, we're working on a bill to study the land-based wind resources on the Eastern Shore. That's going to be led by Delegate Andre Johnson in the House. We're still looking for a Senate cross-file. Others that are top of mind, just because I don't have my list in front of me, Sierra Club is still working on the bottle bill. And so, you know, in the spaces that we convene, if people want updates on the bottle bill, we're happy to share that, even though it's not one of our priorities. Also, the Cherish Act is being proposed again this year. That's a bill that mandates Maryland to consider environmental justice when it comes to citing polluting facilities. So yes, there will be lots of other bills in discussion during session, and some of those will be related to clean energy and not really climate, but environmental justice for sure.
And I do see in the chat, I'm not sure if we can edit the poll once it's completed. The volunteer leadership role question is required. If you can,
My apologies.
no, it's all good. If you can, just select phone banking captain so that we can get everyone's polls through, and because we're going to be following up with you as well. So we'll make sure to get it right just on that follow-up. But we do want to hear from everybody what you'd like to do most.
Great.
Um,
And
Joanna was
go
gonna
ahead,
try,
yeah.
yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Joanna raised her hand right before she was gonna tell her story, and I have just a
Oh,
little
I'm
story
sorry.
about my experience, but
I'm so sorry.
Joanna, you were first.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say that we're having a meeting on Friday with Chairman Feldman, and I'm going to be giving my story at that time. I actually did have a climate event this summer where our basement flooded 3 times when it just rained nonstop. About 4 inches in probably half an hour. And we caused about $8,000 worth of damage in our basement, and also caused our fence to come down in the backyard in certain places for another $2,000. And we had, because Maryland set records for the humidity in the air in July. We had a lot of things in our garage that started molding. Even the wood in there was molding. And so that required us to buy these really expensive dehumidifiers. And all told, it was like an $11,000 event for us. So if that's happening to just one house in District 15, what will happen to much larger areas and around the state?
Yeah, you know our answer to that. Polluters need to pay. That's so wonderful, and thank you for sharing that. And it'll be so awesome to share that with Chair Feldman. Anne, I know that you wanted to share something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I did testimony, just one little, piece of testimony with another person from our climate action work group at our Quaker meeting. And I'd say like drafting the content, telling a little story, putting a little information in there, that part wasn't hard, but it was a little bit tricky to do to figure out who we submitted to submit it through the Maryland State Assembly system. You have to register and getting the deadline, getting in before the deadline. That part, I don't know if I missed. I went to a party before that. It was for a different legislative district, but I learned generally, I think Dustin spoke at that party, and I learned generally about writing testimony and the purpose of it. But when it came down to actually submitting it,
Yeah.
that was a little bit tricky. And we learned, so next time we'll be able to do it, more easily. But I don't know if you cover that in any of your trainings, but that could be helpful for, people that are not familiar with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, yeah, and we are talking about doing a training specific to submitting testimony. That would be a virtual training. But also,
Great.
Dustin and Brittany, with all their expertise, are going to put together a toolkit for how to submit testimony, written testimony, to make it as easy as possible. But Dustin, I don't know if there's maybe for a minute or so, if there's anything that you just want to share for folks in terms of things to keep in mind as they're submitting testimony using the MyMGA system.
Yes, and I do, Richard Emery also has a question, but we can also, before we wrap up, I do want to say a lot of these systems are decades old. So it is really helpful to hear just what difficulties there are for folks so that I can take screenshots, I can go through it myself, submitting my own testimony, just to kind of head off any problems or issues that folks may have. If all else fails, you can email your testimony directly to that specific committee or that specific agency. They don't like it, they get very angry. But if nothing works, that is an option as well.
And Dustin, I'm sorry, you said we have a question from somebody?
Yes, we have one question from Richard Emery. Richard, would you like me to read your question or would you like to ask it?
Please read it.
Okay. So after FEMA refused to cover damages in Western Maryland, so all that awful flooding, what details do we have? And can we use it as an example of a very big financial problem for Annapolis if FEMA refuses to help when a hurricane or another extreme weather event swamps the bay or otherwise affects our state? And if Governor Moore again fails to implement the study and the legal authority, how do we make the fossil fuel polluters pay?
Brittany, you want to take that one?
That's a fantastic question. So the end is easier to answer. I'm looking for the question in the chat because I didn't capture the beginning as much, but for the end, I mean, that's one of the reasons we're working on the Climate Restitution Fund. If by chance the Renew Act is not pursued by the state, then the other option is to sue fossil fuel companies. It is a different type of action and it has a different set of pros and cons. but that's another possibility. As far as the details on FEMA refusing to cover the damages, if you mean like an explanation, I haven't seen any concrete explanation of why FEMA refused to cover the damages in Western Maryland. Feel free to email me and I can do a little bit more research to see if I can get a written explanation. But it is a small example of the big financial problem for Annapolis, for Eagle Harbor, for the entire Eastern Shore, for Allegheny County. I mean, all of Maryland and the entire United States is more vulnerable if we can't count on FEMA. And actually, we have a colleague, her name is Gabby, and she's on the federal team, and she really leads CCAN's FEMA work, both on defending FEMA, but also reforming FEMA, because we know that FEMA is not perfect.
Thanks so much, Brittany. And as we close out, I want to share a couple of things of next steps folks can take. And don't worry, also follow-up emails coming tomorrow with the recording, slides, links to the links to like the fact sheets and to events that we've got coming up. But we have a storytelling training that I just put into the chat on Thursday, November 13th. That's from 7 to 8 p.m. It's virtual. So definitely, if you've not, sort of thought about your climate story before and how it relates to these issues, sign up for it.